Earlier this year, the TSSA, the Transport Salaried Staffs Association, which is one of Britain's transport unions, launched a report detailing a rising tide of violence on Britain's rail network. The union launched that report in February, that was in Parliament, and the top lines from it were nothing short of extraordinary. Over half of respondents reported experiencing some form of violence, either physical or verbal, within the previous year. 95% of respondents reported that they had been on the receiving end of verbal threats or abuse. So basically, all of them. 40% of respondents reported incidents involving weapons. 40% of respondents also reported incidents resulting in minor injuries, such as cuts, bruises, or sprains. Racial harassment was reported by 43% of respondents, while 37% reported sexual harassment. This is all at work over the previous 12 months. Not since I've been working on the rail, not since I've been a member of the TSSA, over the previous 12 months. Basically, everybody had experienced verbal or physical violence of some kind. 40% had encountered somebody with a weapon. Wild. That should be the number one story on the BBC website. Yesterday, the TSSA shared these photos on X detailing the kind of damage happening on Britain's trains. The images you are seeing are of a carriage on the Southern network. This is one carriage in particular. Basically, every pane of glass has been broken throughout the carriage by what looks like a BB gun. To find out how bad things are really getting on Britain's trains, I spoke earlier to the General Secretary of the TSSA, Maryam Eslamdoust.
Unfortunately, we're seeing a wide range of violent and abusive behaviours. Transport workers are being spat at, threatened, punched, kicked, and in most extreme cases, killed. We've had members like Belly Mujinga, a GTR employee, one of our members who was spat at by a passenger who was infected with COVID, and she soon died of COVID-related complications. In December last year, George Ortega died after being assaulted. He died of head injuries. He was assaulted at Ilford Station. So this is happening far too often, and it's becoming normalised. Our members deserve safety at work, not fear at work.
That's incredible. Somebody died last year. I mean, COVID, you can say that it was, that's a unique context. Obviously, it's appalling. But somebody died of head injuries last year. What happened there, George Ortega?
George was attacked by a passenger, and he was hit on the head, and he later died in hospital from the injury.
So have things gotten worse? And what kinds of problems are we seeing more of? Or is this just the baseline with regards to the railways, and we're talking about it more because of social media or because you've run a good campaign?
Some things have definitely got worse since COVID. But there is so much underreporting that it may have existed before COVID. What we are being told is that the violence it runs across demographics, so it's teenagers and professionals engaging in this type of violence. The TSSA treasurer, Mary Sitley, is a frontline worker, and she was threatened by a middle class, middle aged, professional looking man. So it runs across demographics. We have looked into what factors are causing this, and it's definitely cuts to mental health services and youth provision over the years have created that instability and exposed, these people are being exposed to transport workers. The cost of living crisis means a lot more people can't afford transport fares, and when challenged they're lashing out. But we can't ignore the big elephant in the room. Public transport has been understaffed and dehumanised. Lone working practices and unstaffed stations remove the very safety net that used to prevent escalation. So it's a perfect storm of economic pressures, public service collapse, and corporate cost cutting.
And do you see repeat offenders? I mean, you said this is a wide range of people that are doing this kind of stuff, that are making threats, intimidating members of staff, or even engaging in acts of violence and vandalism. But is it a very small proportion of people using trains that are doing this repeatedly? Or is it often people just doing it as a one-off because they've lost their temper?
It's a combination of both. There's repeated offenders and there's one-off incidents. We unfortunately we don't have the stats to support it because employers aren't sharing post-incident reports with us.
And your union is campaigning to increase funding to BTP, that's the British Transport Police. Can you explain the perspective behind that and what precisely you want? What needs to change with regards to BTP for your union to be happy?
So the British Transport Police is currently facing an £8.5 million budget shortfall. We're the TSSA is the recognised union for BTP staff. We know exactly what this means. Around 300 jobs are at risk, including frontline and essential back office roles. Station offices are being closed, leaving large areas with little or no police presence. This affects BTP's ability to respond to incidents in a timely manner, and this will only make things worse. So we need more BTP officers on the network, not fewer. But actually, TSSA is campaigning on a comprehensive strategy to eliminate violence against transport workers. So we're asking to end lone working practices. This is especially for onboard and bus drivers because when you're working alone, that's when you're most exposed to danger. We're asking employers and train operating companies to properly resource stations and maintain ticket offices. Just a mere ticket office presence is a deterrent. We're asking the government to fund British Transport Police adequately, and that's the campaign that I just spoke about. We are asking employers to take their duty of care seriously towards transport workers. Often they pressure workers to return to work before they're ready. And finally, we're asking the government to make violence against transport workers a specific aggravated offence, like it's being done for retail workers.
I mean, let me just get this straight. That's, again, really incredible. You just said that there are proposed cuts to British Transport Police, which could mean as many as 300 jobs go. That's while we had this report, as I mentioned before I spoke to you. You've got 40% of your own members of staff, according to the data that you collected, saying that they'd experienced somebody brandishing a weapon in the previous 12 months. You're seeing members of staff die at work, like George Ortega. Even after all of that, there are proposals to cut British Transport Police.
Absolutely. So there is an £8.5 million shortfall and a recruitment freeze in place. This is affecting BTP's ability to respond quickly to incidents, and it's already stretched, and this will make things even worse.
That was Maryam Eslamdoust, General Secretary for the TSSA union. I mean, I was just thinking about this actually with a colleague earlier. These guys are in a really unique position of being public service workers. I mean, Southern is now actually publicly owned. It's been renationalised by the Labour Party, the Labour government. But they're involved in a financial transaction. I mean, I think it puts them in a very uniquely vulnerable place. The idea, a guy died? I mean, to my shame, I didn't know that. This is literally my job. A guy died. People are dying, trying to keep the rail ticking over in this country. Carriages are being smashed to bits. This is not a national story. I want to know why. Why isn't this a national story? The TSSA shared it yesterday. I shared it yesterday. It's got 1,000 likes. I haven't had a single journalist DM me, say, hey, how do I get the rights to these pictures? Why isn't that a national story? Because it's not, can't blame foreigners. That's why. Carl, your views on this rising problem of vandalism and disorder on our trains?
Yeah, I think Maryam described it quite well. There's cuts to public transport, which mean that stations are kind of just unstaffed, like increasingly like wild places. But I think with the transport sector, like almost every other public service, anybody who's the face of them that interacts with the public is dealing with the issues that deep cuts to public services and poverty are causing. You have staff in A&E talking about facing increasing violence and abuse. Teachers in schools suffer the same type of thing. And railway workers, transport workers in general, are no exception to this. I think when you cut and you cut and you cut, society begins to disintegrate. Problems that could be avoided or stopped earlier end up building, and it's public workers, not just in the public sector, also in the private sector, who are interacting with the public, who unfortunately are bearing the brunt of the sort of increasing division and anger and mental health problems and so on that are occurring in society. And there's no simple solution to it. It means reversing the entire economic model that is creating that type of disturbance and putting workers on the front line having to deal with it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's some interesting comments. One from Kate42 with a £4.99 super chat. Thank you, Kate42. Disabled people also rely on transport workers. Yep. Guard on the train, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's an important campaign. Also, one other comment about we shouldn't be asking for more cops, British Transport Police on the train. We should have more staff. This isn't, the TSA aren't asking for more British Transport Police. They don't want them to be cut. They don't want to be cut. You've got almost 100% of your members in a trade union experiencing verbal or physical violence in the previous 12 months. You don't want the BTP to be cut. That's not a right-wing position. I don't think. Right? You've had somebody die from head injuries at Ilford train station. You don't want the BTP cut. Doesn't mean, by the way, like infinity British Transport Police is going to solve them, because it won't. I agree with you. The first step is more staff, at ticket offices, not having single members of staff do these patrols by themselves, etc. But you absolutely should not be cutting BTP. First thing, don't cut it. You probably do want to put it back up to the level it was in 2010. Sorry. But if 40% of TSSA members are doing their job and they're encountering people with literal weapons, I just think it's really remiss to say we shouldn't care. Look, there's nothing to do with the BTP. Of course it is. Come on. I don't think the long-term solution is, we have quadruple the BTP and it all disappears. I agree with you. It's primarily a social problem. But you've got to guarantee the safety and welfare of these workers. They're literally putting their lives and well-being at risk.